Welcome to podcast episode 198. Now, within this specific podcast, we'll be discussing exactly how to build your glutes. Now, unfortunately, there's so much bad information on this online. I felt like I had to address this topic. Don't get me wrong, there's bad information about every little nuance when it comes to fitness, nutrition, and training. But when it comes to females building their glutes, there's so much bad information out there, and this typically comes from what is popular to look at on things like Instagram, Facebook. A lot of the videos that gets lots of views is basically a lot of these females doing exercises that don't do anything at all to develop their glutes, but they're eye-catching. Some of these exercises are very eye-catching. They look good fun to do. And unfortunately, that's, in my opinion, that's where a lot of this bad information has come from. People are focusing on what actually looks good rather than actually what gets results. Because when I discuss exactly how to develop your glutes in this podcast, you'll realize just how simple it is to do. But let's just firstly focus on what people are doing wrong. Well, the biggest error people are doing incorrectly when they're trying to develop their glutes, they're focusing on lots of bodyweight exercise. I've spoken about this before when discussing other body parts, but essentially, for us to develop the glutes or any other muscle group for that matter, we need a progressive stimulus. Essentially, the most important factor when it comes to developing the glutes or any other muscle group is increasing volume over time. So in short, in very simplistic terms, you need to be progressively increasing the weight you're using. Let's say, for example, if you're doing 60 kilogram squat, if you then go up to 70 kilograms within a few weeks or even a month's time, that will therefore mean, and you're doing the same reps and sets, that would therefore mean volume would have gone up by default. So volume is basically sets times reps times load. But in simplistic terms, all I want you to take away from this podcast is you need to be progressively getting stronger with your exercises over time to create that stimulus needed for growth. So that's the biggest mistake people are doing, is they're doing lots of bodyweight exercises. Again, you can't create a progressive stimulus. You can't progressively get heavier to make the bodyweight exercise harder, unless you're obviously going to gain loads of body fat, which is not what we want to do. Now, with regards to exercise selection, there's quite a few that I want you to focus on, but the key thing is they're all what's called compound exercises. A compound exercise is where there's typically more than one muscle group working, and you can use heavy weights. You're doing barbell exercise, and that allows you to move the most amount of weight. And this is important because this will therefore mean it's easier to gain strength with these exercises over time, and therefore gain more volume, and that will give the stimulus for growth. So things like squats, lunges, barbell hip thrust, barbell glute bridges. Hip thrusts and glute bridges isolates the glutes a little bit more, but those exercises, things like squats, lunges, hip thrusts, glute bridges, barbell step ups, any of these big compound lower body exercises, deadlifts as well, any of these big compound exercises are fantastic for developing the glutes. So try and focus on those. So squats, lunges, hip thrusts, glute bridges, deadlifts, and variations of these. If you have your program built around these exercises and you're getting stronger with these exercises over time, you're going to build some fantastic glutes. Now, the other key component is, like any other muscle group, to develop and get bigger, we need a calorie surplus. So that's the next thing to think about. You need to be consuming more calories than you're burning. You also need to consume sufficient protein. I don't want to go into too much detail on this podcast because I discuss muscle building fundamentals, nutrition principles within other podcasts. If you go back to probably one of my first 10 podcast episodes, I discuss in detail nutrition for building muscle, and that's really what you want to be focusing on, is a calorie surplus, so you're consuming more calories than you're burning, sufficient protein, and then volume going up with these exercises, or in simplistic terms, you're getting stronger with these exercises while doing the same reps and sets, Or another way to increase volume is to add more sets while keeping the weight and reps the same. So hopefully that's been useful. Again, this really is the key to developing the glutes. It's not doing lots of bodyweight kickbacks or any of this other nonsense you see on Instagram, unfortunately, every single day. So thank you very much for listening. If you want more help with this, I suggest going to the link within this podcast description and add a link there. If you need more help with this, go to that link there. If you're still yet to subscribe to the podcast, make sure you do, as these podcast episodes come out every single week and I'd hate for you to miss an episode. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you soon.